Hello again, everyone. You're listening to another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint podcast series. My name is Jeff Mix. I'm Executive Platform's Head of Content and Research. My guest today is Peter Shearstone, the VP Global Quality and Regulatory Affairs for Thermo Fisher Scientific. Peter leads a team of approximately 9,000 quality and regulatory affairs professionals at the enterprise level, as well as in Thermo Fisher Scientific's many businesses and operations spanning more than 140 countries. Peter leads a comprehensive Q and RA ecosystem that includes clinical affairs, design quality, product legislative compliance, quality assurance, quality control, quality engineering, quality management, quality systems, regulatory affairs, and supplier quality. Prior to joining Thermo Fisher, Peter held executive quality and regulatory roles with companies in the healthcare and life sciences industries over the course of a career spanning nearly 35 years. Peter, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate the time and the opportunity. It's good to meet you as well.
You hosted a themed lunch discussion at our Pharma Manufacturing World Summit in Boston entitled Changing the Compliance Paradigm in Large Global Companies. Having just read some of your bio, I think I can guess at some of the answer, but what made you choose that topic specifically?
Well, Jeff, I think large corporations, are established at some point in time and they grow and they expand, whether it's through organic or inorganic means, right? And oftentimes the company just adds and doesn't look at those additions holistically and think I could do it a different way, or I could be more efficient and more effective. And so my thought process kind of going into the session, that lunch session, was kind of sharing the journey that we've been on as a highly acquisitive company, to find a better way, to do it that's more efficient, more effective. And that at the end of the day, leads to a quality and regulatory affairs function that can, again, be maximally efficient to support the growth of the company. If all you're doing is adding and not taking anything away, well, you're not being able to scale, and you're actually putting a drag on the organization. So that was really the intent of doing that talk.
When you think about compliance at large global companies versus smaller scale organizations, what are some of the biggest differences you want to highlight for listeners?
So I think, with a large scale company, the risks are greater, right? They're multiplied over the portfolio. So at Thermo Fisher, we make everything from electron microscopes to contract drug manufacturing, clinical research, IVDs, chemicals, plastics. The range of our portfolio is pretty immense. And when you think about quality and regulatory across that space, it's a continuum of maturity. Some of the less risky, less complex products are going to need, a different level of quality and compliance, if you will, than you're making a drug for human consumption, right? So to me, it's being able to span that portfolio with a culture and a system and processes that can accommodate that difference in risk and that difference in maturity that you wouldn't necessarily have actually in a smaller firm, where you've got a smaller portfolio, very focused portfolio, where the risks and limitations of that particular segment that you're in. If it's an IVD, for example, you can carve out and be more focused. With us, we've got to be a little bit more macroscopic in our thinking.
Now, in your career, you've worked in a few different groups. Is there something from your experience working at larger versus smaller companies that you could share to illustrate some of what you're talking about?
So, certainly the large company model is going to have the ability, resources, competencies that you may not have at a smaller firm. That said, the change at a larger firm obviously takes a longer period of time, right? So it's really comparing, a cruise liner, to a speedboat in many cases. And having worked in both environments, what I'm trying to do at Thermo Fisher is take that speedboat mentality, kind of that COVID time mentality, when we were going through a lot of different things happening all at once, as a globe, as a world, and move that ocean liner faster, make it easier to turn, make it easier to back up if we have to. I hope the analogy flies, because for us, we can't keep being the ocean liner. We've got to be a speedboat with these 9,000 folks that are in the function, and again, find a much faster, more efficient way to get ahead for our customers and our shareholders.
Returning to the themed lunch discussion you hosted, I want to give listeners a little context. These lunches are some of the most popular content we build into our summit agendas because each one is a 1 hour small group interaction that up
Yeah.
to 10 people can opt into from a list of options. So it's a meal with like-minded people talking about something they all chose ahead of time. And the only downside is, by its very nature, the takeaways tend to stay in that small group, which
Yeah.
is what I'm hoping we can get into in the next few questions.
Sure.
Let's start off by talking a little about who joined your lunch. Now, you don't have to name any names, of course, but was it the sort of job titles and companies you were expecting? Did anyone surprise you by choosing to take part in your topic?
There were no surprises per se. We had the head of quality for AstraZeneca at my table. We had GSK and Lilly and other companies that, quite honestly, are customers of ours. So, and then we had other folks that were, I think, just interested in the topic, that were not from um, our customer base, or not from the let's say the CDMO world that joined as well. So it was a good blend of folk that came to the discussion. Um, it was eye-opening, I have to say. We had folks from the US, we had folks from Europe, folks from Japan, actually. And so being able to see the differences in geographies, how things are done, kind of sharing again with the lunch topic, the large versus the small, or how to move differently in the compliance space for a large company. It was really beneficial. I really enjoyed it.
Now, you've already told us some of your thoughts on this subject. How did that resonate with the group?
A lot of discussion. Some of them had already been through it, actually. So for me, it was presenting our journey, but also getting feedback on that journey from people that already done it. And that's what I hope to get out of that discussion, was that it was a back, and it wasn't just me sitting there, spouting for an hour. It was, hey, this is what we've done. This is the journey we're on. Give me feedback. If I can teach you something that we did and you can find that beneficial, great. But tell me, am I doing the right thing? Is the speedboat cruise liner analogy, does that make sense to you? And have you faced the same thing? Have you faced that challenge of change management, where you're trying to, again, move an organization in a particular direction over a defined period of time? Is that the right period of time? Is it the right approach? Should we do smaller chunks versus bigger chunks? So I think that was the real benefit of the lunch meeting, was being able to get that feedback and know and calibrate, know where we were headed, and it was the right thing to do.
Now, of course, you picked the topic and you live and breathe this stuff in your day-to-day work. Did anyone say anything you did not expect to hear? Is there something new that you took away from the conversation?
Well, I think back to it was the shared experience that others have done in this space, large and small. I will say this: wasn't just big companies that were there. There were some smaller firms as well. So it was good to hear things from that perspective. There were no surprises, really. Just that I think the ones that had already done it, I think maybe if there was a surprise, it was how fast they actually had done it and how long ago they had started. So for some of the customers of ours, they had gone through this 5, 10, 15 years ago. And so for me, it was, again, the appreciation for the fact that they had done it and when they had done it. So I'm kind of looking in the mirror thinking, okay, we need to get on the horse here and go faster, and be a lot more thorough than perhaps we were planning to be.
I'd like to follow up on that a little bit, because you were mentioning earlier how COVID sort of changed the way things are done, and your transformation is being informed by some of that experience. And here there were people at your table who they started their transformation 5 or 10 years ago, so that would have been before COVID. Did
Yes.
you see a big difference in how they were telling their story, the people who were doing it before COVID versus the people who were doing it after COVID?
Yeah, there were definitely differences. I can't put my finger on the pulse of the major differences, other than the speed at which things were happening. During COVID, a day was a week was a month was a year, an hour was a day. I mean, we were moving so quickly, making so many decisions with such velocity and intensity. Um, that, we needed to go and rent a warehouse to store tests to help test people. We were making that deal in a day, and normally that would take in non-COVID time, that would take 6 months. We were able to get reimbursement for our COVID test in, I think, 8 hours in some of the countries that we worked in, where normally in that country, it's a 9 to 12 month period of time, right? So we found this amazing flexibility and intensity with not only internally, but externally as well, to get this work done to save humanity, right? And I often think, Jeff, that if we had that same level of intensity and passion post-COVID, and to your question, even pre-COVID, how different would we be as a company? What I'm trying to do, back to my analogy of an ocean liner and a speedboat, is trying to bring that level of intensity, energy, commitment to our efforts to change with respect to how we did things during COVID. And I think during the lunch discussion, it was generally agreed that all of us wish we could take that passion, that intensity that we had during those few years, 2020 through, let's say, 2022, and mobilize it, the same way we mobilized it then, to solve some of our most tricky problems that we have today. For example, having a really complex quality management system. So
that really resonates with me, and it echoes a lot of what I'm hearing from other people. I think one of the things that the pandemic really did was show us what was possible, that we can move faster, that we can be more agile and responsive in a time of just constant disruption. So I really appreciate you making that point. Returning to the lunch, because I appreciate it wasn't just telling war stories from COVID-19. What do you hope other people got from the lunch discussion that we can share with our listeners?
Well, I think that the quality and regulatory organization, number one, is a super important part of any corporation. It's not a support function. It's a leading function, has to be a leading function. We have to be at the table where decisions are being made, because at the end of the day, the companies run in this space, the life science, pharma, device, diagnostic space. Companies run and succeed because they have quality and regulatory affairs working behind the scenes to get products registered, to keep the quality system clean, to stay compliant, to have a good culture, right? So I really wanted the folks at the lunch to understand that don't accept that the quality and regulatory affairs function is not a partner, is not valuable. It absolutely is a partner. It absolutely is valuable. And we, as the leaders in the function, have to be carrying that flag. We have to carry that flag and plant it and say, look, we're here. We can help you. That's how I really came away from our lunch discussion.
I wonder if we can expand upon that a little, because I know so many people in the quality space who, 100% what they do is vital to the function of their organization, but it can sometimes feel there's a quality team and there's everybody else. And of course, getting what you need, what you want, the resources, the attention, the decision-making speed, as you were talking about. There's a lot of things you need from other people inside and outside an organization. I guess what I'm asking for is, can we talk a little bit about advocacy for quality?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Jeff, and I really appreciate that. The function sits, to me, at the center of the wheel, and every other function, finance, HR, operations, supply chain, R&D, commercial, everybody has to run through the quality regulatory function. And internally, I think as the leader of the function, or if someone out there listening is the leader of the function, you've got to advocate for the value of being at that center of the hub. You've got to be a champion of creating opportunity and value creation for all of those other functions, right, to drive the company towards growth. Also, I think you got to spend just as much time externally. So I think you've got to spend time on a professional board of some kind, where you're with peers. Maybe it's with the American Society for Quality, for example, or maybe it's RAPS, which is the Regulatory Affairs Professional Society. Maybe you're involved there, where you can engage and have conversations with people that are, in your shoes, if anything, as I said in my early remarks, to benchmark kind of what you're working on in a safe place with, no risk of confidentiality, but in a safe place, say, am I doing the right things? Am I focused on the right things? And again, that exchange of information externally actually helps power your internal advocacy efforts, quite honestly. Because if you can have an argument internally and say, well, I think this is the way it should be done, people might not listen. But if you say, well, this is the way it should be done, and by the way, it's the same way Procter and Gamble or J&J or whoever else does it, it comes with it hits with a different intensity. It hits with a different power, I think. So I really think that internal and external advocacy is essential for the roles like mine, in the quality reg function.
I almost feel like I can't do an interview these days without talking about how technology is changing the conversation. Maybe even specifically artificial intelligence, but broadly speaking, I think quality more than most is a discipline that is leveraging these new tools, that is looking at their options, that already is dealing with just a waterfall of data more than any one person could ever get their arms around. There have to be tools to help them do their job better. I know we're starting to run out of time here, but I would love some of your thoughts in that topic area if we can.
Yeah, I mean, look, AI and machine learning, large language models, all of that has definitely helped us. We're in the on that journey. We've established governance teams, we've established a process, we've established a use case evaluation tool. We're working with our IT partners internally to use ChatGPT and then the next version, which I think is 4.0, to find ways to evaluate, as you said, all the data that we have available, whether it's CAPA data, complaint data, even in-process data from manufacturing. How do we utilize these tools to predict processes, to predict product quality, to avoid having to do maybe an additional step in the process, or even maybe to automate batch record review. And by the way, take those resources that are actually kind of doing that work and focus them on the next generation of AI, right? So not necessarily eliminating positions, but finding a way to redeploy those folk to help create more value for the company. I can take someone off the line, for example, that's a highly experienced quality person, and I can put them inside the corporate team here and do internal auditing of manufacturing spaces. Well, that's a win-win-win. Automation wins, the person wins, and the function in the company wins. So, to me, Jeff, that's how I see it playing out. I will say, there are guardrails that we've put up, right? So, when it comes to, let's say, 510(k) submissions to the FDA or pre-market submissions to the FDA, those require a lot of original thought, right? Someone's got to sit down and put the pieces together in the right way in order for the FDA to see it and obviously clear it, at some point. And if it's a CAPA, for example, you really want to show your process. It's kind of like in school, you want to show your work. So I think there's for us, we've put some limitations in place, and yeah, that's how it's played out for us. It's an exciting time.
Absolutely. We are coming up towards the end of this time we've set aside.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people working in the life sciences who want to help change the compliance paradigm in their organizations? What should we be thinking about and learning about further?
Well, I think, Jeff, people got to stand up and be bold and have the courage to look at their systems and say, it isn't good enough. It's not what we need. We got to find a better way every day. I think that's what I tell my team all the time. If something isn't right, do something about it. Don't just accept the status quo. I think it's the TSA or Department of Homeland Security, right? See something, say something, right? Don't just live in the system and woe is me it. You've got to take and engage in trying to make a difference. And I tell that to, folks all the way down to the tech level. You've got to find a way to stand up and say, this isn't right, and then improve it. Our internal improvement, continuous improvement tool is called PPI. It's practical process improvement. It's our business system. And that's what's expected when you come to our company is you see something, you've got to change it. So I would tell everybody out there, don't just accept it, fix it, change it, challenge it, speak up. Because I think the reputation of quality and regulatory sometimes is we just sit on the sideline. Can't sit on the sideline.
That's a phenomenal point. I do maybe want to do one more with you. I mean, it's such a big topic, and I feel like I could talk to you all day about this.
Yeah.
But again, of course, I want to be respectful of your time. Just before I let you go, is there anything you want to say as a way to close out the interview?
Well, Jeff, firstly, really thanks for the opportunity. Number one, it's been a tremendous, my first podcast ever. So really appreciate the
Oh
time.
my goodness, I
Yeah,
had no idea. You're a natural.
yeah, well, I appreciate that very much. But you embarrassed me a little bit. Look, Thermo Fisher operates in, as you said, hundreds of countries. We make an impact to our customers every day, right? Our mission is to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer. Uh, we believe in that mission. The work that we do today, and I've been here 6 years now, is all around that, right? And in order to make that happen, as I said, the function has to stand up and carry that flag and say, we're here to help. We can make a difference. We can add value, and we can drive growth. It's not just about audits and compliance. It's about, how do we get products on the market faster? How do we get customer complaints resolved quicker? How do we get our employees developed and onto their next part of their career within the function? Those are things that I'm super passionate about. And I think lastly, how do we get students in universities all over the world that are either science or let's say STEM students? How do we get them to see the world that we live in and come and be a part of it? Because we really, really need to get, I think, the younger generations, into quality and regulatory affairs. Because honestly, it's an area that they don't know, that a lot of the universities don't know about, and we've got to help them see that.
What a great note to end on. Peter, thank you again so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Jeff, fantastic. Best to you, and have a great day.
Absolutely. You've been listening to another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint podcast series. I've been Jeff Mix. Let's do it again soon.